everyone. This is John Rocha. How are you? Well. It's back. The show everyone was clamoring for, wanting to see. Now, as I'm recording this, I'm not sure what the title is going to be, so I'll probably record a new intro for it, but I'm saying it right now. It is the new version of the Deep Cut here on the Outlaw Nation outlet. Want to thank you all so much who've been DMing me and sending me messages wanting this show to come back because you really enjoyed the interviews I had on before. Gavin Hood talking about experiences with Wolverine. We had Todd Douglas Miller talking about Apollo 11. We had so many great actors, Himish Patel from yesterday, so many great directors who are currently nominated, Kareem Ainuz for Invisible Life. All these great directors came on to talk about their projects. And one director that I remember distinctly, will never forget, is Richard Stanley. And his film was Color Out of Space. And if I get that audio, you will hear that audio soon. But today, I welcome to the show three of the actors from that incredible film, Color Out of Space. You know her from so many different projects, including Big Eyes, The Family, To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I might be going to that junket this weekend for the sequel to that movie. Her name is Madeleine Arthur. You know him from the OWA, Tagged. He's worked on so many different things, and he's lost to me in the Schmodown, but he'll probably beat me in the Schmodown sometime this year. That is the kid himself, Brendan Meyer, and Elliot Knight, the gentleman you have probably heard or seen on Call of Duty Modern Warfare. You've seen him on Life Sentence, American Gothic, Once Upon a Time as Merlin, and How to Get Away with Murder, as I said just now. And of course, I saw his Law & Order UK episode, for God's sakes. Elliot Knight also joins us here today. So that is Elliot Knight, Brendan Meyer, and Madeleine Arthur. Welcome, all three of you.
How are you?
Thank you.
That was great.
That was a great introduction. I'm honored to be here.
Please, I'm excited to have all three of you here because this film... I was a massive fan of Mandy, and I thought it was such an incredible film that came out of nowhere. And I was like, well, how is this going to happen again? And Nicolas Cage said he was getting off the set of Mandy when they asked him to sign on. Spectavision did for Color Out of Space, which is an H.P. Lovecraft short story. Tell me how you all came onto this project.
Well, I was in a kind of traditional / non-traditional sense, was sent the script and immediately was just wowed by it. It has so many different elements. It plays with the family dynamic and how they deal with this color, and it just has such a crazy character arc for all of the characters. And just basically overnight, I had the good fortune to become a part of the project. Yeah. And that was honestly, it was one of the best experiences ever. I've used the word magical a lot. And I don't mean to overuse it, but that really is the word that describes the whole process of making the movie.
Yeah. Well, Brendan, you've done some horror stuff in the past, and this kind of has elements of horror to it. It isn't just a horror film. What excited you about coming onto this project? We were talking off mic, and you said you got the call where you were in a movie theater that you were going to be part of this.
Yeah. So I'd sent it. It was like the last audition I did actually in like December 2018. So I sent the audition off like right at the end of the year. And so then you don't hear anything because it was Christmas. And then, it was a couple weeks into January. I was in a movie, and then I came out and got the call that I was going to be a part of it. So, I was really drawn. I mean...
Yeah, what drew you to it?
I think what was really cool about it is that even in some of the material that was sent in the initial audition was sort of some talking about Richard's vision and how he wanted to use the color and how he really wanted to push the boundaries of just like how a color could terrify and what it would look like, and that sounded really cool. But I also thought that there was a real human element running through the script, and I thought that even through the script, and of course the other actors brought that out as even more, but even from that initial script that Richard wrote, you could feel it felt like a real family, and there were real dynamics, and there felt like there were enough family stakes that when that horror stuff set in, it meant even more. So as an actor, there just felt like there was so much to jump into.
Elliot, was there something with the attachment of Richard Stanley and Nicolas Cage? Like, when did you know about all of that before you came onto the project?
I did. I knew that Nick was attached. I knew that Richard was attached, but I didn't necessarily understand who Rich was.
Oh, wow.
Like the man that is. I'd not seen his work or heard of him before.
We say the entity. I think the entity.
Yes, really. The deity. It's shocking to me now that I didn't know about him before.
Right.
But similar to Madeleine, I read the script and just found it so unique. Not just in how you see Richard's mind on the page of how he's explaining all of these atrocious moments that are happening, but also it felt like such a unique opportunity as an actor to be involved in something like that. It's, you know, it's something deeper and something that goes further than just traditional horror today. I feel mainstream horror for sure. I read that and it blew me away, and I just thought I have to be a part of this if I can. And then once I knew I would be, and the character that I was, I started to research more into Rich and Lovecraft, and then I was like, oh, this is special. Whatever this is gonna be, it's gonna be special, and it was a lot of fun too. So it was all of the good things.
Well, Brendan's a self-professed nerd, so I'm sure he had read the Lovecraft story before. But had either of you two read the short story, Madeleine or Elliot, before you got onto the project?
I hadn't read it before, but after we knew we were doing it, I got stuck into Color Out of Space, and I have a Necronomicon as well of all of the. I haven't read it all.
Oh, right.
So that's like 20 years of reading, but I dove into that script and into that short story and looked at Lovecraft as well and watched like a documentary on him about his life and what he was like as a person, and which was something that Rich wanted to reflect in my character Ward was some aspects of Lovecraft's personality too.
Right.
But no, this was my introduction to all of this craziness. Yeah, and it's been pretty cool.
What about you, man? Had you read this story before, the short story before?
I hadn't read it before reading the script, but have since become a huge fan, and I recently picked up actually a collection of his short stories.
Oh, okay.
And I only just finished the introduction, which was so insightful into Lovecraft and his world, and it makes infinite sense when you read about how he talks about fear and like fear of the unknown being the oldest and strongest kind of fear of mankind, and I also, my dad has now become this massive Lovecraft fan. He's like, HP, like, I love your work. So there are a few new HP Lovecraft fans out there for sure.
That's awesome. You guys play brother and sister in the movie, and what is your character? Explain a little bit to the fans who maybe haven't seen the film yet. Elliot, can you speak about your character?
Yeah, so Ward Phillips is a hydrologist who comes to the farmland to survey for the mayor, because there is a plan to build the largest man-made lake reservoir this side of somewhere. It's huge.
Right.
And so he just arrives on the land thinking no one will be there, and he's just doing his job. And the opening of the movie is he stumbles into Lavinia, who he's instantly just fascinated and consumed by for weird and wonderful reasons. And then that becomes his in into meeting the entire family and sort of being a witness to the strange events that occur on the farm.
It's a farm,
strange
right?
is an understatement.
Strange.
Capital strange.
Right, because Brendan, you're playing Benny, Madeleine's playing Lavinia. That's who Elliot was referenced. You two are part of this family unit that's been dragged out of society by your parents, played by Nicolas Cage and Jolie Richardson, and you're on this farm / house / commune almost in this situation. I know you guys shot in Portugal. What was the relationship between you two before you got on the set, and how did it develop in creating this kind of family dynamic between you two?
Right. Well, we knew each other actually before we shot. We were actually friends. We have a mutual friend that we met through maybe 2017, 2016.
Yeah,
okay.
So
is it a thing? Do all Canadians just know each other?
Well, what's funny is that
American friends.
What's so funny is that's what's funny is that it's through our friend who's American. We both worked with her in Vancouver. Actually.
Oh, right on.
But yeah, no, it was actually through our friend who's American. So yeah, it was cool. So that was fun, in that we knew each other and we had a rapport. But yeah, we got to know each other even more working on the shoot.
Exactly, because I feel like we always saw each other at friend gatherings and things, and then this movie really brought us together, and it made working with each other super fun and easy, and we could easily play off each other because we already had that rapport. And then building the family dynamic on set, I mean, by virtue, I think, also of filming in Portugal, not only the family dynamic, but also with Elliot, just being in a small town on any film set, you become sort of like a family. Right. But because we were all basically at the same hotel and we would share meals together, and sometimes even a short meal that you'd go, oh, I need to have a quick meal. 3 hours later, you were finished the meal because we all got along so well, and it's Europe, so that style of meal. But that all really helped build the family dynamic. And then we also had a rehearsal period for a couple of days where we went through the script and got to know each other a little bit, which is always so beneficial than just showing up day of set and be like, hi, I'm your dad, and hi, I'm your mom.
And it was only a couple
Let's go have a love scene, or let's go
let's
have
go
a big
like cry
fight.
together.
And it was only a couple of days, but it makes a huge difference. Just a couple of days where, you know, some of the pressure of shooting is off. And also what Richard did, which was really cool, is he had written sort of pretty detailed character backstories for every character. And so we showed up that first day, and we were getting to interact with everybody, but then he gave us this sort of like, mine I think was about 3 or 4, but it was just, you know, Benny feels this way about his mom. Benny feels this way about his sister. This is how he feels about moving away. Yeah. This is the things that he likes. Like all these little things that will never literally be stated in the script, but you get to absorb as an actor. So
I was just going to ask about that. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Which made our work so much easier. As Brendan said earlier, it wasn't so much of a guessing game, and you didn't have to go and ask Richard like every single question, like, how do I feel about this person, this person? He had already brought that. And he was still extremely collaborative and wanted to know your thoughts and opinions on everything. So it was very much a two-way street. But it was really, really remarkable to have those few pages of notes to just understand the script as a whole as well, because it is this crazy wild ride. It takes a couple reads to wrap your head around it. There's so much that happens. There's so many different layers to it. So thank you, Richard.
It's still so crazy that we made this together. We were part of this thing.
Yeah. And we left about a year ago to film.
Yeah, it was about this time last year we were there, I think. Last week of January.
And now the last like few months have been, you know, at the screenings at different festivals and watching it and seeing and hearing and feeling people react to it, and it's just been incredible. Like
I think there is a hunger for this kind of movie developing amongst film fans again.
I agree.
Like this kind of thing that is well done, yet has an element of the kind of I don't know, otherworldly, supernatural, almost slightly B movie feel to it, like Mandy did, but fully dials in, right? Understands the material, respects the material, yet is not afraid to play with the material or within the material.
Totally.
And you're seeing that, and I think this is a film that does that as well, which I think adds to the enjoyment of the overall product. And I'm sure H.P. Lovecraft would probably have enjoyed this film and sitting down with Richard Stanley to discuss it.
Definitely would have been.
I was going to say.
I think Richard knows more about H.P. Lovecraft than H.P. Lovecraft knows about himself. You know?
Yeah, I think if H.P. was around and he could choose someone to adapt his work to the screen, it would be Richard. I can't think of anyone else that's better suited to step into that world and fully embody it and be able to communicate it so delicately to everyone else who doesn't get it.
Ryan, can you hear us? Because we just lost our stuff in our audio in our cans. Okay, good. As long as you can hear us,
I was thinking that.
Me too.
Okay, so if we want to take these off, we can take these off. But like, all right. So let's, and we mentioned Rich. So let's talk about Richard Stanley. Let's talk about experiencing this man, working with this man. I had seen Island of Dr. Moreau in the theater. So that's how old I am. And I saw it, and I remember this guy, and I remember Hardware. I rented Hardware on VHS growing up as a kid, because I was into finding these independent voices. You know, he's South African, coming out of there. Like, what is this about this director that makes everybody want to see his stuff? And so when I heard he was doing another film after what had happened in that documentary, which had come out on Netflix, which I'm sure you're all aware of Netflix. You've been on shows at Netflix. I was like shocked that this was something he walked into. But he said that he had a fantastic time doing this film, and it kind of pushes back against all this notion about him that he's crazy or tough to work with, and it blossomed
that's
up.
All so wrong. All lies. He's honestly
fake news.
Fake news. He's so gentle and so passionate, and before each and every take, you could see the glee in his eyes, just as a filmmaker being so excited to get this take, and he's so passionate about Color to Space, the story itself, about horror in general, about movies in general. He's a big cinephile, and he's really soft-spoken and lovely.
He was like a kid when he was on set, just so happy to see like his new toy. And I think more than anyone, as much as he was very content and fine in his absence from the screen, he was so... I think it's fair to say that he was maybe a little nervous stepping back because he didn't know what to expect. And after the experience he'd had previously on Island, I think it was a joy for us to witness how, not just how happy he was, but how much he loved what he was making and the process of making something with other people again for the first time in, like a couple decades.
Yeah.
And it didn't really feel like he hadn't made a movie in 20 years.
Not
That's
at all.
what's great, is he had his amazing presence and all these things, but also professionally, he was completely on the ball. He knew what he wanted. He had his game plan. And what's interesting about when you watch the documentary, Lost Soul, what I kind of took away from it after having worked with him as well is that all the actors speak very positively.
Yeah, they did
in that
right?
documentary.
Yeah.
And having actually worked with him, you totally believe it because
Right.
he was amazing to work with. And I mean, that having worked with Richard, there's no doubt in my mind that he should have been allowed to make his.
Right.
I mean, everything went
Vision
wrong.
or-
The
or-
hurricane.
Yeah.
There were
Yeah.
so many different
the people who were
elements
involved
of
in
play.
it, replacing him,
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
nutty. And he said that he feels like he got all his bad luck strokes out of the way
Right.
with that one.
Yeah.
And he had nothing but an incredible time shooting this one.
Totally.
And
I
the
think it comes
producers
through.
were really supportive as well.
Yes.
And very, I feel like everyone wanted him to succeed.
You're right.
Yeah, there was a nice respect in place for who he was as a person and a creator and his history too. And I think that it was nice to feel that on set. It was very collaborative, but
Yeah.
also there was a huge respect for, this is Richard Stanley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is amazing that we get to do this. Let's trust in him and what we're doing. And
Exactly.
he gives you the exact same trust, which just, is so remarkable
All
to
the people at
experience.
Spectre Vision are so good, I think,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
finding these artists and making them feel comfortable and getting them out there and letting their vision kind of grow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're determined to create a certain kind of entertainment and
Yeah.
put it out there and have it be consumed by as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that mission statement. And I think they're putting the right people together
Yeah.
to get that, to make that happen. And it's exciting to see that. We should jump into the movie a little bit. Let me give a synopsis to people who may not have seen it. By the way, this comes out on January 24th. January 24th everywhere. Go get out there and see it. I'm probably going to see it 2 or 3 times myself because it's not a film that you can consume for the first time and get everything. You're gonna. It's one like as a great film. It's one you can watch multiple times. But the synopsis of this is: after a meteorite lands in the front yard of their farm, Nathan Gardner, is played by Nicolas Cage, and his family find themselves battling a mutant extraterrestrial organism as it infects their minds and bodies, transforming their quiet rural life into a technicolor nightmare. And this, you've got crazy technicolor fauna, you've got people change, you've got anger, you've got emotions popping up. So let's dial into this. It is called the deep cut, or a version of the deep cut. Let's dial into this idea of we want to live our life away from main society. This thing pops into our yard and this color crosses our borders and messes with what we had established. So the idea is like this. Is it this that's causing this, or have we always been feeling this and now we're finally ready to be honest with each
Right.
other and talk about stuff and get through it? So I find that to be fascinating.
Yeah.
The second time I saw it,
Sure.
it's like, oh, there's so much here that's topical about what's going on in the world, no matter what country you live in.
Ugh, the deeper.
This is the deepest cut.
What do you all think?
I think that's true. I mean, the one thing that I always like thinking about with the script is this idea of a family that has moved away from society, but is still kind of disconnected
Yes.
as a family. And they're all kind of like in their own lane. And there's little, I mean, you can speak more to this as well, but little tensions between the kids and different family members and stuff. And what I always think is interesting is the color. You're right. It forces them to be more honest. It forces
Yeah.
them together. And they are more together at the end of the movie than they were. And you can speak because that's very much your character's arc, right? But that's what I like about it.
Absolutely. I mean, in terms if we're looking at, say, Lavinia specifically, something Richard and I talked about is how she's kind of the only character that doesn't actually completely get ruined by the color.
Right.
Because by the end of it, you actually see the love she has for her father and for her family. Even though she says, I want to get away, there's still this love that's there. And she ultimately becomes this conduit or vessel for the color. And so
You're the freer spirit of the family.
exactly.
Right,
And she
right.
kind of starts as Richard said it, this witch, that bound by the like ordinary planes of human existence, and by the end she's become this kind of mystic, or like female Christ who sacrifices herself. And so, looking at it, if you look at it as in that metaphor, it was so fascinating to look at. And as Brendan was saying, the family as a whole just coming together. And something also that was mentioned was that the family shadow is doing things in secretive ways.
Yes.
And slowly these secrets start to come out. And slowly well, I feel like Benny and Lavinia are continuously misunderstood by the parents for a good majority of the movie. But ultimately, the three of them, especially once Jack and Teresa are mutated together, they have to come together with their dad and realize that something awful and that they could never have imagined is happening, where the cosmic dread really comes in.
It seems to be, and that's, I mean, your character becomes obsessed with her. If you see her doing what she's doing by the water and everything like that, you become like super obsessed. What work did you, but like, what character did you develop inside yourself? Like, he's a more straight-laced guy. He'd never seen anything like this. He's infatuated and turned on at the same time, but also a little terrified. Like, how much of that were you working with as you were developing?
Well, a lot of that was down to the character notes that Richard gave us while we were filming, and he gave me a stack. For someone who was not a part of the family, he had this whole backstory figured out for who he saw Ward as, across all things, family relationships and sexuality and relationships to other people and drawing away from society and all this stuff. But something Maddie and I were saying earlier is that it was refreshing with this, that Ward's draw to Lavinia wasn't necessarily romantic in the typical sense. It wasn't really about being, turned on or excited, or it wasn't that. Not that couldn't have been there, but it was more a fascination with the energy that she had, with what she embodied in, this mysticism and the wonder of other people. Yeah. And again, because Rich wanted Ward to reflect aspects of Lovecraft's personality, there was that sense of being a bit more withdrawn and closed off and really valuing human connection, but finding it scarce.
Right.
And so to come across someone that was so interesting and also interacted with him in a way that made him feel comfortable. Yeah. For me, Ward was, I love an unlikely hero. Yeah. Like I love an alternative hero who's not there to just muscle in and save the day. Someone who maybe doesn't even believe in themselves that they can do it, but they end up being that person. They're in that role. I find that infinitely more fascinating, an arc, to both watch and play with as an actor. And yeah, I think the way that he related to people was that same, very innocent, very, he's putting other people's interests before his own, and the reason that he's there is basically to safeguard everyone, which he doesn't have to. Right. He takes it upon himself.
He's a ward.
He's a ward. Just got that. Yeah.
Right. That's a great point, because you are, in essence, a scientist, right? In that way, so you'd see something unusual and you'd want to
examine it, exactly.
Figure out how it works, why it does what it does, that kind of thing,
And in that sense, another point that was raised to me earlier, which is fascinating too, is the environmental aspect of this movie.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Absolutely.
Which I feel like, it's not going to seem obvious because it's not what you would normally take from a movie like this, but we're talking about some substance, something that we can't really see or properly quantify with human science, and seeing the mal effect it has on the land, the crops, the animals, the people, and then it starts to infect how the people relate to one another and their relationship to the world around them, and it infects everything, and it's a disease. And it's all, the culmination of the movie is a huge reservoir is built over this chaos that went down, and one person is aware of how damaging that is, but so many people don't have the knowledge, or they're ignorant and turn a blind eye. And in so many ways, devastatingly, it reflects kind of where we are today environmentally, where there is a huge existential crisis that we're all faced with, but the real task is uniting everyone in the common front of survival for
and the
ourselves.
way the land connect. I was going to say the way you talk about it, it's the way that when the land starts to become infected, then it affects people.
Exactly.
And how first it affects the crops, first it affects the animals, and then how that does seep into it is literally infecting the family and making them sicker and making them less.
And it's taking the family too long to realize that's happening before actively trying to put an end to it and finding a solution.
Nick going through the vegetable patch.
Look at these beauties.
That is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
She's listening to the podcast about how to be a better tomato farmer. Is that a real podcast? I want to believe that's real.
It's got to be real.
But it's and in that sort of in that poignant way, you do see, because there's so many great moments with Nick that are really very entertaining and funny, but also the despair. He nails that so accurately, and I think that's a great moment where someone is just blissfully ignorant. Like, oh, everything's great. And meanwhile, we see him swimming in this purple, fuel-like atmosphere, eating poison, and he's like, life's great.
It's that dichotomy of like the beauty and the wonder of the color and the disastrous effects that it has.
Exactly,
and
like
also
a moth to a flame.
The delusion you can operate under, and the levels of delusion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's so deluded, it's like way out there.
Totally.
And there are people who are kind of like mildly deluded about it and just trying to function. And you see it, and it's a great point you bring up, Brendan, the idea of the land affecting the people. We see it now with the climate change conversation. Some of people's worser instincts are coming out when they're either defending it or saying it's not happening at all. You're seeing, and that's the connection to the land, right? We're seeing what's happening in Australia, the fires, how that's affecting people as well. Puerto Rico again, those kinds of things are happening more and more, and you're wondering like what's the color that is happening that people are like just blissfully ignoring while they're living their lives.
And that is what's so great about what we get to do as actors and storytellers as well, is it's not just a, like vapid movie industry for no reason. I mean, sometimes, but something like this, it's so, there's so much substance to it.
Right.
And it really does, for me anyway, it nails down in these moments, this is the important power behind the voice of storytelling, because we can only ever hold a mirror up to reality of the world, and sometimes that correlates a lot more directly, and this is one of those times where, you know, we are this is a hyped up, twisted version in like a different universe of what's happening right now. And it's interesting to see how, like the characters in the movie, people's survival instincts are different. Some people's survival instincts are to go more to delusion, and you know, like I think Teresa, Jolie's character in the movie, and love her, to see the moments where she's just like, okay, I'm just gonna lie down and everything's gonna be fine. It's like, you know, there's crazy stuff going on around you, it's insane, but the only way she can comprehend a path forward, and you know, that's very understandable, it's very human. I don't think it's wrong to do that.
I think it's also an age situation, because they're older. Their approach to it is more like, well, we've been through other things before. It'll pass.
And they also don't really listen to us.
Exactly.
When we
and the youth is like, no, this is important.
happening.
Listen. Right.
Tale as old as time.
Well, let's talk about working with Nicolas Cage and Jolie Richardson. Can either of you talk about what that experience is like? Like, did you know their work ahead of time? Certainly with Nicolas Cage, but Jolie a little bit lesser with some of the TV stuff. Like, what was that experience like for all of you?
I will just say this and then let you guys speak because you spent the most time. 101 Dalmatians seems like a random reference.
That's great.
But it's one of my, you know, because during childhood, those are the memories that are really baked in with movies. And, you know, and that for me, when I met her and then I was like, you look so familiar. What is that? And then I realized and I freaked out about her ever since.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And they're just both incredible.
Yeah.
But,
Do you still talk to the dogs? Like, are you still guys still, you guys still
right?
still family?
How's Pongo? She's so good. But you guys spent more time, obviously, with them in the family, so that's the end of my moment.
Well, I mean, I feel like all of us, because we're all around the same age, probably grew up watching National Treasure.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, an obvious choice. But, I mean, Moonstruck adaptation, Leaving Las Vegas. Oh, he's been in so many, Face Off. He's been in so many iconic movies that, I mean, I was a little starstruck the first time meeting him. He's just he's a legend. He is, and he crosses from comedy to drama and is equally brilliant at both.
Yeah, it's amazing, you know, to be around him and he was very warm, you know, like he was one of those people where you going into, you're like, oh, and both of them were, both Jolie and Nick were so warm and so engaged and so friendly always that, it did fade, you know, you were able to just kind of, you felt totally, even though they have had these amazing careers, you felt like an equal with them and they made you feel that way,
they're
you know,
consummate
which was amazing.
professionals and they're so committed as actors and as Brendan was saying, just so warm and so humble and just really, really they cared about the scenes and would come with ideas for all of the scenes and were really inclusive and supportive of all of us more novice actors.
Because they do have all this knowledge and all this experience, but yet you didn't feel that way. You felt like they were totally engaged with you. And
they were like, you know, Brendan, what I would do here is...
but even also there can be a thing, I think, where a wall is up or there's a distance or and I never felt that with either of them when we were shooting the scenes and offset. It was great.
And something that the guy said earlier too, especially with Nick because of the nature of the character arc, he is so aside from being so professional, so lovely, he's so emboldened in his choices and confident that it really gives a great leading energy for the set. When you're doing something like Lovecraft, you have to be able to dare to reach.
Yeah.
And he does. And he would, like Brendan said earlier, he would do different things all the time. And he would like mix things up, and it keeps you alive and on your toes.
Yes.
And I think that he's the perfect matchup with Richard and with HP.
Certainly.
To enter the bizarreness of that world and really help lead the rest of the cast and show them the boundaries of where they can go. I found that so helpful, and I barely had to do anything that crazy. I just had to watch you guys do it.
And it's fun because he's such a. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead,
You
Brian.
say. No, I was just gonna say Nick's such a big film fan, and so
Yeah.
that's what's really
Massive
interesting was the way,
cinephile.
like, even on the very first day, like he was talking about how he wears the glasses, and he went to DP. He's like, "I'm gonna be wearing these glasses in the film Straw Dogs." Dustin Hoffman, Straw Dogs. You know, and he was like referencing all these films, you know, in like the way he would choose, and that's so cool to be around.
He probably came in with longer background about this character than Richard did. Richard came in, here's 10 pages. I've already made 50. I've already made
Well,
50.
the first day, like rehearsals, he had like a binder.
He did have a
Oh,
lot.
of course he did.
Like, I
No,
have an
he
idea of
totally
this
came and he
scene.
sat down and he was like, "Richard, these are my thoughts. These are things I want to do." And Richard was very happy.
what I think the character's like.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Did you guys have dinner as family together, like Jolie and you all and Jack and everyone like that, or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All the
To
time.
develop that
We'd
kind
go
of-
into Lisbon together. We'd
wow.
explore. We went to Cascais, which is on the coast.
Yeah.
We really, I mean, being in that small town in Sintra in Portugal, I feel like we were always running into
Yeah,
each other at
we
breakfast.
just run
we
into
were seeing
people.
each other all day, every day.
There was one day where because both my parents were able to come out at different times and stuff, and so my dad was there for a while, like a week or whatever. And there was a day where we went to dinner and we sit down, and then like 2 minutes later, Richard comes and sits down, and then Koryanka, and then Jolie was in the middle of us, and it was literally just me and my dad. And within like 10 minutes, it was like a whole table. So it was cool.
funny.
So not only did we do things, kind of structured things together, you just round up running into each other.
What about Elliot? Who did you hang out with? Any? Did you have Kira or?
I did. Well, I was later to set because you guys had the rehearsal period and you started with the family scenes, and obviously Ward isn't a part of those as
Right.
much. So I did kind of get dropped into it, and the craziest thing still to me now is my first day. I still hadn't met anyone, and I was taken to set, and the very first thing I shot was the very last scene of the movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, over the dam when he's.
Wow.
And so I was literally just going off pure imagination. And Rich in my ear, like, this is what's happened. I'm like, oh God. Okay, cool. But no, we had dinners all the time. It really did glue a family feel together. And I remember when we watched the Oscars that night.
Oh
with
yeah,
Jolie.
yeah. We all watched the Oscars.
With Nick Cage?
Not with
No,
Nick,
Nick
was
was
it?
there.
No, but it was with Jolie. It was you were with us for a bit, and then
Yes.
so then it was you.
I think
was
it went
Elliot.
till what, 5 in the morning?
Well,
It
yeah,
was
because
a
we were
long
in
time.
Portugal, so
Right.
I think we started watching it at midnight.
Yeah.
But it was great. No, but it was so funny because we were in the lobby of a little like bed and breakfast place in Portugal, and actually there was somebody we didn't realize. It's a crazy
whole
moment.
time.
We're sitting. It's been about an hour and a half, and we're sitting there. We got the Oscars on the laptop. We're on a stream.
We've been
we're
talking and laughing
We're
and all this
joking.
stuff.
And then a woman comes out from behind the desk.
Just
And
looks.
we realize that she's been around the corner. She's the night.
my God.
we're
The
like,
whole
The
time.
night manager.
Sat in the corner. So weird.
we don't know if she was annoyed or if one was trying to sleep
How
or
long
what.
is this
We
show?
felt so
Yeah,
bad.
seriously.
Yeah,
Waiting
she
for us
was
to leave.
not. But it was imagine. We were like, she came out.
It was
Yeah,
fun
we watched
though.
the whole thing. We weren't even
We
sure
did.
we were gonna stay up because it was so late, and then we thought we're gonna
Yeah.
be good.
It was a very comfortable environment. I'm so grateful for that. We just had
And the casa.
Casa. over there.
yeah,
Castle.
a little like palace that we were in for the time. It was
Yes, there are peacocks all over the ground.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
there-
And
yeah.
Alpacas.
And
Alpacas.
alpacas. The
Yes,
alpacas.
we have to.
Come on. What,
the
what,
real
what is
lead
this all about?
character. I don't know what they're about, but I just love them so much.
They're so soft and so gentle. Also, they talk a lot because they're
A
kind
lot.
of a herd animal. They travel
Yeah.
in packs.
Yeah, there were
You
these
spent
4
the most
guys.
time.
Well, we were joking because this woman who had like 16.
Wow.
And so she just took 4 guys, and it was funny because it was almost like The Hangover. It was like 4 dudes went on this trip, and like they were away from them, but they had a hierarchy. Like she was saying that one of them was the leader, and that one of them was the second
Of the alpacas.
Of the alpacas, yeah.
alpacas.
So they said this guy here, he's the leader, he's the eldest. This is the second, this is the youngest. And I remember we were walking them, and they said, "Okay, Brendan, you have the number 2, so he'll always be in the back. They have to be on either side, and that he won't go unless." And it was amazing to hear. And like you're saying, they're always talking.
Yeah.
And so there was
Very vocal.
And they said that's them checking in. Like they're always in communication. Like, hey, okay, we're going over here, you know. And so once you know that, it's amazing because they're doing it all the time, and you realize these four animals are interacting.
Yeah.
What was
every
our
time they
favorite one
move
called?
to and from
The dark brown one with the little like
Oscar. I think that was Oscar.
Tor was one.
He's the one.
Bruno.
He's like he pops up when you first see them. One of them is just like it's the first shot, and I loved him.
Yeah, they were such interesting because Richard. I mean, that was very purposeful, right?
Yeah.
Richard wanted something that wasn't the cliche farm animal, you know, and he talked about that from the beginning. He said, you know, he put alpacas in because he didn't want the image of the kid with the cow or the kid with the, you know, he wanted something that had character and personality, and so it was totally intentional to create that extra element of that kind of animal.
I would love to read the text exchange between him and Nicolas Cage. What do you think? Alpacas! I love it! Alpacas it is! It's perfect!
Well, that scene where Nick's drinking the milk and Elliot's there, it is absolutely hilarious.
And what's funny in that too, and you remember this as well, because the three of us are in that scene, there were so many different things he did. I would always laugh at boobs. I would always laugh at you'd be like, good job, Dad.
Yeah, good job, Dad.
But there was what you don't see in like the edit that's out is he would do that. He'd drink the milk, which is I'm already so creeped out anyway, as Ward and Elliot. And then he'd just stare at me. And there were a couple takes when he just would stare and threw this like iron jug of alpaca milk right next to me against the side, and it would explode everywhere. It's all over his face. He has a mustache.
Yeah. Well,
It
he
was
always built in
amazing.
that moment, which wasn't totally in the script, where when you said something, when you wouldn't drink the milk, Nick would give you a look as if you just like, you know, said the most offensive thing possible. And that's like
I'm
all the
lactose
air,
intolerant,
he would suck
and he's
all
like-
the air out of the scene in that great moment, as if like, you know.
Did they have you tossing lines to make him angrier and angrier, or did it just stay with
I
the
didn't know
script?
any of that was happening.
Okay.
No.
All right.
And for me too, I'm like,
I hate leaving Las Vegas. You
it was interesting, the dynamic of that though, especially that scene, because Ward, you know, is so much more reserved and quieter.
Right.
He's much more of an observer, and I truly got to just relax into that and observe Nick Cage just
Drinking
go full on
alpaca
Nick
milk.
Cage. Yeah, it was it's a highlight for sure.
I have to ask you guys about Kiranka Kilcher, because I've been such a fan of her since Whale Rider, right? And seeing her develop and show up in Game of Thrones, and they didn't quite do enough with her, but seeing her do all these different things. What was your experience with her?
I mean, I think I probably had the most with her out of all of us, right? There's a scene that isn't in the final cut, but there's a scene when I go to the mayor's office, which is she plays Mayor Tuma, and we have this exchange where she really gets to show, you know, how she embodies the evil corporate side of just society, where it's power and greed and profit over everything, like humans be damned. And she was really great. She had such a wonderful like approach and sensitivity to the work, and I wish that we had more scenes together. I wish that there was more time with everyone, obviously, but she was a joy. She was
I think I
really
misspoke.
great.
She's in New World. I'm sorry,
Right,
the New
yes,
World,
yeah,
not
yeah,
Whale
right.
Rider. Sorry,
It's okay.
the New World. Yeah, that one, which is the one from Terrence Malick.
Yes.
She plays Pocahontas, which is incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Like, so
and she was
seeing her
very
being-
young when she did that too, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, she was
14,
really young.
That's right.
So seeing her playing a mayor of a town, I was kind of like, wow, what is happening here?
Yeah, she did that so well too. And she
Yeah.
walks into the meteorite and she's like, "What is happening?"
I know it's so different than literally playing Pocahontas, right? This like
Literally.
corrupt mayor.
That's
like,
it. There's the range.
Madeleine, what did you discover working on this project? Because you've done a lot of work of note over your career in the last few years, especially. No, don't do that. You know you have. Was there a particular challenge to this one that excited you, or that you discovered as you were doing this?
Oh, something I think I discovered as I was doing it. Well, I mean, a couple of challenges. I got to ride a horse, which was, I had a few horseback riding lessons ahead of time, which was, it's always really exciting when you get to learn a new skill for something.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the actor thing. They're like, can you ride a horse? And you're like, yes.
always yes.
That was your first time on a horse?
No, I'd been on a horse like
But-
a few times.
but
in my
prepping
life.
for
But prepping, I'd done 3 horseback riding lessons when I first landed in Portugal. And then just getting to do those kind of emotionally traumatizing scenes, say when Jolie's character is mutated together with Jack and she's over top of me, or the ones where Nick is dragging Lavinia up the stairs, all of that kind of stuff. We were really in for a solid, I want to say, week to a week and a half, and all night shoots, just in this kind of emotionally challenging space, which as an actor, it's that weird actor thing where I think we have a chemical imbalance, and it's quite exciting to play that. But that was just a challenge to to keep that up
Yeah.
for that duration, because I'd done scenes like that before that just had a difficult like emotional place to be in, but had never done it for like a week and a half straight of shooting. So that was like a new thing of like
the endurance you would say?
Yeah, endurance,
Yeah.
exactly.
And we talked about those scenes, you know, like later in the film where, you know, the color has really changed our mother and things like that. And it was funny because we talked about this when we were shooting about how, and this is what's great about horror and genre, is that it seems like something weird and crazy is going on, but so often, like we talked about with you, it's just about something deeper.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about how as an actor, and even though it is a fun movie as well, and maybe certain people will find it amusing, or there's a black comedy running through it and things like that, you know, we really had to treat these scenes, we said, like it's as if, you know, you have a mother with a cancer or something like that, or and you know, we really had to buy into those real emotional stakes, and everybody did, you know, and it was that's a really interesting thing when you're in this movie that might seem like wild and crazy, but as an actor, you have to bring it down to its raw, human, like, this is my mother and she's in this situation and this is horrible and we don't know what to do. And so it was.
If you don't bring it to that level, then it might come across as completely out there. So
Right. Yeah, you have to, as an actor, you have to ground it. We talked about that.
Yes.
We said, is this moment going to get a laugh? Is it not? And we even talked to Richard about that, where we talked about, like, you know, it's like some of it might be funny, some of it might be deadly serious, but as an actor,
like the alpaca, like one Lavinia line in particular, because of course I remember all my lines a little more. When I say after Nathan's gone and shot the alpacas, and he comes back up and he says, "I'll take care of Teresa and Jack," and I go, "Like you handled the alpacas," and every time I've seen it, it gets a laugh. But that's a perfect example, as that was totally serious.
Yeah.
That was.
It's funny because of how seriously you take it, right?
Situation.
Well, they tell you the best comedy is when you're being as serious as possible.
Born out of drama.
Yes.
Yeah, born out of the drama.
Exactly.
Exactly. Now, Brendan, with you, I asked Madeleine a different question about what her challenge. What did you discover? Because you're a burgeoning director now. Were you having conversations with Richard as he was directing things? Were you picking up tips for yourself going forward for your career?
Of course, yeah. No, when you're around someone like Richard, it's so important to kind of talk to him about his, you know, his vision. And I always try to pay attention to, you know, where he's putting the camera, especially also watching it back, the edit and what he chose to use and not. And yeah, just being around people who have such a mind for cinema is so exciting. Yeah. I mean, I remember there was this time where it just was one scene and it was Richard, Nick, and myself, and they were talking about movies. And I was there too. And it was just you just learned so much. And it was just interesting to hear their thoughts about different things. And yeah, it's so important if you want to direct, like I hope to. And, you know, it's so important to soak up, to just be that extra awareness, you know, when you can. There's some scenes where you're so in it as an actor that you kind of probably can't. But yeah, those extra days where you don't have as much to do or you're done for the day, to stick around and just kind of have an awareness of what Richard's doing and the little things he's adding. Yeah. I never
use a lens, use this.
I know, no. That's the thing. I was there to learn. I was totally there to learn. I wasn't. Yeah.
You were telling Steve.
I was on the DP. I was like, you know, man, I don't really think. No, I definitely not. Definitely
Get him
not.
off the sit.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good way to get yourself kicked off set. No, I always am just there to learn. It's kind of the same thing when you're around actors like Nick and Jolie. You know, you're trying to learn. You're not.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah, Nick, I think you should do it more like this. Like, no one's ever said
there was
that.
an amazing. I just want to say one thing about Nick that I'll always remember is this great moment when we were talking about when Nick and Richard and I were talking and Apocalypse Now came out.
Oh, yeah.
Came up. And it was and what was so cool is Nick was like, "Oh man, I love the opening scene with, you know, the way you know, the fan," and he was talking. And what I thought was so cool is here's this guy who his uncle directed the movie.
Right.
He talked about knowing Martin Sheen growing up.
Yeah.
But he talked about it with the enthusiasm of a film fan.
Right.
Of somebody who, you know, you felt like you were talking to the guy at Blockbuster, like, "Oh man, you got to run Apocalypse Now." Like he had that, and I just found that so exciting because so often, you know, not so often, but sometimes you can run into actors who the career and especially film is so funneled through their own experience and their own, and to be around a guy who had this, you wouldn't have thought he had that connection to it. He was just about the cinema.
He's my white whale.
Yeah.
To catch him for an interview for an hour on this show would be everything. Because it would just all the film stuff to talk about, his own roles. We might not even get to his own roles. It would just be talking about film, and that's that's so interesting about him. Elliot, is this the farthest you've been out to? Have you been to Portugal before? Had you been experienced this at all?
I'm from England, so I had.
I can tell by the accent.
I tried to hide it, but next time. I never. Surprise, guys.
That's what that is. I thought it was just I couldn't place
This
it.
weird sound. It was my first time in Portugal doing this. I've been to Spain before.
Right.
I've been all around Europe before. Because you're very lucky when you get to be a part of Europe. Brexit, blah blah blah. Anyway, oh god,
We don't have time to get into
we
this.
don't. We really don't. We really don't.
That is truly the deepest cut.
It's done. But no, it was my first time there, and I'd also heard about how mystical that place was to people, friends who had been there before,
Right,
specifically Sintra, where we were. And no, it was honestly, I never thought when I moved, to the States 5-6 years ago that I'd be flying back to Portugal to do a movie with one of the biggest stars like this side of the Atlantic.
Yeah. What do you take away from the experience for yourself as an actor? I mean, because
Man.
you've done motion capture, you've done TV series, you've done all these things. What do you take away from this particular experience?
I think I'd say something that Brendan probably agree with is there's such a magic to film. It's different. I love TV. I love the motion capture stuff. There's so many new worlds right now that are being established that are so exciting to be a part of. But for me, most of my experience has been TV, and I've been so, thirsty for more film and more character depth and time to focus on story arcs. And, I learned so much in this experience. I learned so much from just being around a person like Richard Stanley. I could have sat down with him for 10 minutes and come away like a more developed person and actor. His insight and approach to things is just remarkable. To have the experience of, being around Jolie, who's just phenomenal and so delicate, and Nick, and everyone was so great. And particularly, I said to Maddie when we were doing it, specifically because you have so much to deal with as we shot this, not just the emotional journey of it, which is already a challenge, which you accomplished so well, but also the physicality and the rain and the cold and covered in blood and all this stuff.
Right.
Every day I was on set with Maddie, I was like amazed and so impressed.
Stop.
And it's true. I know it's true though. It's to not just look up to the people who've already done everything and, are very accomplished, it's easy to accept that, but to watch someone specifically who is starting out their journey and just to see them excelling at that is very inspiring on the other end of it too. So it was a very big eye-opening experience to me, and I enjoyed every second of it.
What about your fashion? Did you hate your fashion? Because you're a very fashionable guy.
Oh,
What
thanks.
you were wearing,
I made an effort
What you were
today.
wearing in the film?
Yeah, I try not to think about that too much.
Tuck it in, Elliot. Tuck it in.
Right? No, the cool thing was I just got to, because I was just covered, I got to wear thermals underneath all the time.
Oh,
It got pretty chilly up there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, because we were in a canyon or mountains or whatever, it had its own microclimate, and so there was a lot
Wow.
of dense fog all of the time, and it was creepy, man.
Yeah, to put it, I mean, I'm trying to think of what you could compare it to, but it was really cool. The town we were in was truly like a small sort of like tourist town with
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
like castles. So, you weren't in a capital city. It was like being in like, I'm trying to think of California. It's like being in Big Bear or something
It's
like
where
that.
they go
Like-
to shoot all of the car commercials. There's a car like driving on a mountain road. And
That's where they go.
Sintra is where they go to do that stuff.
And by filming there and going past castles, like Brendan was saying, it already added this sense of like otherworldly quality because we weren't in a metropolitan or cosmopolitan city or environment.
right.
So immediately you're already kind of in this sense of awe. So when the color arrives, you're kind of already slightly off kiltered because you're in this really different place with all that's rich in history and
Did you take anything away from? Did you take any of the any of your clothing?
Actually, this is funny. So this T-shirt, I didn't wear it in the movie, but I lost my luggage for a few days. So this was a Lavinia shirt that could have been worn.
Oh.
And I was like, "Do you have any extra clothes?" I didn't have any. I only had like one shirt and a pair of pants.
Is this a thing you do at every set? Oh, I lost
Yeah,
my
I lost
luggage.
exactly. But I do have some wallpaper. Katie Byron, our great production designer, gave me some wallpaper in a frame, and I have a couple other of Lavinia T-shirts and outfits.
We all
and
have the American Gothic.
No, we didn't.
the-
You
don't have them?
You are a lucky lad. He has a really cool T-shirt.
Yeah, tell me about this.
Wait, were you guys not? Oh,
We
because you
were-
already finished.
we didn't get this thing
we
yet.
were at the
I
party.
got spare, so I will give them. I wish I brought them today. After we'd wrapped and we were finished, and because I was there on the last day, we have these T-shirts of. There's a shot of Jolie and Nick stood, just the two of them, about halfway through the movie, stood over the crater where the meteor used to be, and they took that, they like screen grabbed it and made it a sort of cartoonized block
Like
out
the
their
guy with
faces.
his, it's like the guy with the,
Yeah,
that
the
famous
American
picture
Gothic
of
with
like,
yeah.
the
Oh,
pitchfork.
yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
The
they,
couple,
and
yeah.
there's a black shirt with just white, but Nick Cage and Jolie Richardson next to each other with the pitchfork, which is amazing. We should have.
oh my gosh,
That
so
would've
great.
been
I actually
amazing.
still have my hoodie too, because I basically wear wear the same hoodie through the whole thing, and the art department had done like little cigarette burns and stuff like that, and so I have that in my house. Like I have the actual hoodie of like with the cigarette burns and everything.
That's really cool.
I actually wore it for an audition not long ago, and I had to be like kind of a
No way.
yeah. I just threw it on.
The lucky hood.
Yeah, it didn't work. I didn't get it, but you know.
What do you all take away? Because we got to wrap up here in the next 5 minutes. What do you all take away from this experience? And you've probably been asked by a number of people, but is there something that you haven't said that you've wanted to say about your experience on this film that you take away? Because you all seem like you really enjoyed the hell out of this.
Genuinely,
yeah.
and
Truly, yes.
it's always a pleasure to be amongst people you spend time with and say that in true honesty.
Yeah.
Like that, there was nothing bad about the experience.
No.
Any challenges were creative and they were a natural part of making movies.
So no meltdowns, no diva behavior. All of it was
There
wasn't.
just
No.
so just everybody in conjunction trying to make that film
Exactly.
work.
And kind of like what
Yeah.
Elliot said earlier about being inspired by everyone and also being inspired by our crew. Our crew was terrific, and our production designer and DOP, like everyone came in conjunction to make the movie. And that it's not that that doesn't always happen, but there was just something in the Portuguese air, or the food, or the water.
And Richard is such a great voice, and I think that's probably, you guys would agree, that getting to be a part of a group of artists that were helping to get Richard's voice back out there,
Yeah.
because he
Absolutely.
is such an important film
Right.
voice. And like you said, I mean, I've gone back and watched it. Hardware is great.
Yes.
And
Dust Devil.
He
yeah,
was
Dust
so
Devil, yeah.
great, you know,
Yeah.
and so the fact that he's now back and that this movie's being well received is great, because I think we are going to get more Richard
A
Stanley
new
movies.
era of Richard Stanley movies.
And so to have gotten to be a part of that and work along other people who were as passionate about it as Richard was and as we all were, that was cool, you know,
and
to be part of that.
and to work with Richard, I feel like at a very specific time in his career as he starts to make movies again, and to have had the honor and the good fortune to catch him at this moment in time, because he
yeah.
is a natural born storyteller, a true poet, and just an absolutely wonderful human being.
Yeah.
So
There is no one else like him.
He's-
I would agree.
There is
Yeah.
no one
True.
else
I've
like
interviewed
him.
100 people. There's no one like Richard
He's
Stanley.
fast. He feels like a piece of history, like
Yeah.
living history. It's amazing.
I honestly could go away with him for a week just to hear his stories.
Totally.
Easily.
Because, I mean, he was looking for the
Absolutely.
Holy Grail. Apparently, he
Yeah.
had these two black stones that he was rubbing together and was messing people up. So, like, all this kind of stuff that he's experienced. And, yeah, you go, oh, it seems kind of crazy. Yeah, because you're stuck, once again, you're stuck in the delusional world of planting those tomatoes and doing whatever. But
Right.
here's this man living out in the ethereal plane,
Right.
touching all kinds of things
Yeah.
and bringing them out for people to explore. He's doing those documentaries, all those kinds of things. So yeah, I mean, anything that gets him back off that mountain again would be great.
Yeah,
right? To come down and direct again.
And you guys are right. To be a part of the reignition of his excitement and presence for the screen and in film, which we know is so exciting to so many people, is really, really special.
Yeah, those first few crowds, you know, like Midnight, and I know I wasn't there, but they talked about when they went to Fantastic Fest, and,
Yeah.
and like those, especially Midnight Madness at TIFF, like you could feel the excitement with people
Right.
that were there. They were there because they wanted to see the new
return
Richard
of
Stanley.
Yeah.
And,
They were
and
there
you'll
for him
see
and for
Richard
Nick
Stanley
and everybody, but-
elements, of course, in
Yeah.
color. Some of his signature kind of, you'll see like ritualistic things and in the design, and so hopefully fans appreciate all those moments that are finally coming back to the screen.
yeah. And like you guys said, it works on multiple levels. And you know, like he gave this great quote to Slash Film when he's talking about this whole thing about the DNA and long change. All those things happens in Color Out of Space. He says, and by the same token, all life on this planet can be vaporized and wiped out by meteors eventually. The things which could have created could also destroy us, and at the same time, they're completely impartial to our existence. This idea of removing meaning to something and actually looking at it objectively like a scientist, and then after you explore it, then figuring out where it fits in your world, right? Those kinds of things are
Because one of
here.
the things he chatted to me about was panspermia theory, and this theory of, you know, life beginning. We are all aliens. We're all alien bodies landing on this planet from
Yeah.
somewhere. Some meteorite landed at some point and made this happen. We're not so disconnected to what's out there than we might think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating
There you go.
stuff.
And just to finish, the last thing is that's what's interesting about this is the horror in this
Yeah.
is a emotionless horror. It's not
Right.
a person.
Right.
It's emotionless, you know,
Yeah.
which is like the elements or something.
Right. Sometimes the most horror-filled things are when you have to go explore your own feelings
Right.
and actually have an honest conversation with someone
Yes.
about
Oh.
your feelings.
Therapy.
Right. There it is. Well, that's why they call it the deeper cut or the deepest cut. We'll see what it's called by the time I name this thing. Color Out of Space. Go see it January 24th in theaters. I want to thank Madeleine Arthur, Brendan Meyer, and Elliot Knight for stopping, and thank you for being the reignition of my own podcast
Thank you for
as well.
having us.
So I appreciate it.
This
So
was
thanks
so
for having
much
us on.
fun.
this was a blast. Real quick, where can they find you guys social media wise or anything you're pushing?
The Graham.
Instagram, Madeleine Arthur, Twitter, Madeleine Arthur.
Same Brendan KJ Meyer on Twitter and Instagram.
It's Elliot Knight on the gram. I'm on Twitter, but I already use it, so don't
Yeah.
waste your time.
Are you Birmingham City or Manchester United?
Neither.
Neither? Who do you cheer for?
Arsenal. That's the family team.
I'm sorry, bud. I'm a Liverpool man. We're winning the league this year. All right, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we will talk to you next time. And please remember what I say every time I end one of these episodes. Whatever you need to do to get through the next second, next minute, next hour, next day, next week, next month, next year, please find your way to do that. You never know what's waiting for you on the other side, and it just might surprise you. And certainly look at Richard Stanley as a great example of that. 20 years later, coming back to do something like this is incredible. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. This is the Outlaw Nation.